How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gianluca, aka Dr. Calcagno, and I am a first-year family medicine resident that's currently working and studying here in Canada. Now, here's the deal. On the channel so far, I've gone over a few different videos now talking about the current state of family medicine and talking about some of the conditions that have led to the observation where we have now millions of Canadians and Americans who are without access to primary care providers. Unfortunately, relative interest in family medicine from graduating medical students is at an all-time low. In the very least, it's at a 10-year low. I don't have data that extends before then, but what we're seeing is a decrease of 5% in overall interest in only the last 10 years, and the line is only trending downwards at this point. Now, what this means is that as our population is continuing to grow in Canada and the United States, less and less med students want to be family doctors. They'd rather be internists or surgeons or specialists, and less people are choosing to get into primary care is what we're seeing right now. And what I could say anecdotally as someone that is currently almost halfway done my residency is that I am already seeing just a stream of emails and job offers from speaking to people in person wanting you to take over their practice when they retire. The job market for family medicine right now is definitely very strong as far as I can see. So what we're going to be talking about today is hopefully some really good news for anyone looking to get into family medicine. We will be going over examples and an overall look at the new payment plan that was introduced in British Columbia for family medicine doctors starting on February 1st. Now, the new payment plan was voted in by the current members of the Family Medicine Association in British Columbia. It received overall unanimous support. It was in excess of 90%. I think it was 94% of doctors voted in favor of it. And moving forward, this plan is hopefully designed to have doctors working for longer amounts of time, seeing more patients, and providing better care to the patients that they see. So really high level information for anyone that isn't currently doing medical billing, people that aren't currently working as a doctor or a family medicine doctor, is that you need to understand when it comes to seeing patients, it's either you're going to be doing fee for service or a capitation model as things are currently done here in Ontario. With a fee for service model, when someone comes in and I see you for about 15 minutes, or when I'm a staff physician and I see you for 15 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and bill an A007, which is an intermediate assessment done in the office. For a 15-minute, bill that code, you pay out about $33.70. If you're seeing about 4 patients an hour, it comes out to just over about $120 per hour. The fee for service model incentivizes doctors to see as many patients as is possible within that hour, because the more people you see, the more you get paid. So instead of maybe seeing 4 patients an hour, maybe there are some doctors that could squeeze in 6 or 7 patients per hour, and I'm billing that A007 over and over again at that $33 rate. You could contrast that to the capitation model, which means that every patient that you have enrolled in your practice through something like an FHO, for example, will pay out a certain rate depending on the patient's demographics. But basically, it works out to about $150 per year for you to provide regular treatment for that patient. Now, the story doesn't stop there. There are more advanced things to know about billing as well. It's not just $150 per patient for the entire year in the FHO model, but neither of these models take into account that in family medicine, there are many things that you need to do that do not involve direct patient to physician interaction. Things like paperwork and office management and a whole bunch of other smaller tasks that add up when you stack them all together, such that when work finishes at 4 o'clock, you don't necessarily get to leave at 4 o'clock. Sometimes you got to stay to 5 or 6 and take care of all of the other things that are still part of your job, but that you are not paid for under the current billing model that we have here in Ontario and that exists in other parts of the country as well. Now, we take all of that and we contrast it to the new model. So here we'll talk about it now. This is from British Columbia starting on February 1st, 2023, known as the longitudinal family physician model. This payment model is an alternative to their current fee for service scheme and incorporates the time spent with a patient, the number of patients a doctor sees in a day, the number of patients a doctor supports in their office as a whole, the complexity of the patient's issues, and finally, administrative costs. Now, I'm going to link a ton of in-depth resources for anyone that wants to read about the exact interactions and the exact codes and everything that the BC doctors now get to bill for, but I want to do this at a high level so people would have a general understanding of how this works. And to do that, I looked up a whole bunch of different resources. This is not a sponsored video, but there was a really great video that already exists from Doctor Care. It's a company that advertises billing services resources for physicians, I did use them a lot to help figure out the practical implications of some of this stuff. So what you need to know is that under this new model, you're going to be getting paid in 3 different ways. There's time-based codes, there's patient interaction codes, and finally, there's going to be some sort of capitation model or pay that is distributed to doctors for taking on patients and registering them with their practice. The time codes are going to be the same whether or not you're spending time with a patient or whether or not you're doing administrative care in your office. Every 15 minutes counts as 1 unit of a time-based code, and that 1 unit is worth $32.50, meaning that in 1 hour, you stack up 4 units, and it's about $32.50 per unit, meaning that your time-based salary is about $130 per hour. Now, on top of that, you're also going to be billing a variety of patient interaction codes, and from my understanding, the most basic patient interaction code, the most common one that people will be billing, is about $25 per patient that you see. So if you see 4 patients per hour, you get your $130 per hour plus $25 per patient that you've seen equals about $230 for that 1 hour of interactions with patients that you were having. Now, certainly you could stack this up. You could see 6 patients an hour, 7 patients an hour, and you're going to exceed the calculations we just did. But I think it would be really helpful now just to go over a practical example of what a family doctor working an 8-hour workday might expect to make in that day that they worked. So let's say your day started at 9 o'clock and you're going to work from 9 to 12 seeing patients back to back, and you're going to see 4 patients per hour. Basically what will happen is 3 hours times $130 an hour plus 12 patients times $25 a patient, meaning that first 3-hour block will be worth about $690 that you will have billed for. Okay, so now it's 12 o'clock and you just saw patients for 3 hours straight, meaning that you probably have to brush up on some charting for the next hour, especially if you're trying to provide really good care to everyone in the middle. You want to take some time to do administrative things. For that next 1 hour, you're going to bill 4 blocks or 4 time codes of $32.50 each. So you're going to bill $130 for that 1 hour between 12 and 1 o'clock where you're not seeing anyone. Then between the hours of 1 and 4 o'clock, you're going to see another 12 patients. You're going to directly match the first half of your day. So in this next 3-hour block between 1 and 4 o'clock, you bill an additional $690 in the exact same way that we just did it for the first half of the day. And then finally, after that next block of another 12 patients, you want to brush up on your final charting and administrative duties for the day. You're going to do another hour of that. So between 4 and 5 now, you bill an additional $130, which means that if I did all of my math right, you're looking at $1,640 for that entire day, that 8-hour day that you spent in the office doing your work. Next, you take that $1,640 and you multiply it by however many days you're expected to work in the year. Different family doctors will pack their schedule a little bit more or take on a little bit less work depending on where they are in their career. But let's say, for example, you worked 300 days in a year, then your before overhead costs are about $500,000, what you will be billing for in the year. Overhead's about 30% in BC from what I've seen for the most part, and some job listings on there, meaning that your after overhead but before tax take home is somewhere around $350,000. Now, this number of $350,000 after overhead but before taxes should be looked at as a conservative lower end for someone that's going to be working 300 days per year because of that additional last piece of the puzzle, which is the panel payment. The physicians in BC are also going to be getting an additional amount of money based off of how many patients they have enrolled in their panel, and the amount of money that they get is also going to depend on the patient complexity and their demographics. They still haven't worked out exactly how much money is going to be given for that panel, but it will be something in additional tacked onto our already existing example that we just did. Now, one final note before I give you my opinions about everything that we just talked about is that I also found some limitations, and again, stuff's going to be linked in the description of this video. You could read all about it, but some other things that I found interesting is that there will be a maximum daily amount of time that you're allowed to work. If you were a super hungry resident, now staff physician that wanted to work 20 hours a day, you couldn't. You weren't allowed to, because your maximum daily time that you're allowed to spend on any single calendar day is 14 hours. That's what you're allowed to bill for. In a 2-week maximum, you could only bill for about 120 hours, so supposedly about 60 hours per week. And finally, the maximum clinical administration time could be no more than 10% of the total amount of time claimed by the physician in a single calendar year. Oh, and then one more maximum that I just found now is that you're not allowed to bill for more than 50 patients in a single day. In our example, we did 24, so 50 would be a stretch, but you're not allowed to bill for more than 50 patients in a single day. So now, here's the thing. Acknowledging that I am not a staff physician, and I'm certainly not a staff physician currently working in BC, my knowledge of the BC healthcare system is limited to my research and what I've been able to find online. So everything that I say here is used hopefully as an educational value. I can't really comment too much on what the physicians themselves think of this new payment plan, but at the rate that they voted it in, 94% acceptance is very, very good in trying to gain an accurate representation of what people thought about this proposed model. And just going on Reddit, it seems like some of the doctors or supposed doctors, because you gotta be careful on Reddit all the time, that are talking about the way this billing will affect them personally, is that it looks like they got about a 40% raise from what they were billing before compared to what they will be billing now. If they kept their schedule looking exactly the same, a 40% raise is definitely, I think, a step in the right direction. And there is so much that could be said about traditionally doctors not really getting pay increases that keep up with inflation. Basically, as inflation keeps going and things get more expensive in society, medical raises for doctors are few and far between, relatively speaking, compared to a lot of the other jobs out there. So I myself, when I see numbers like this as a resident, it makes me very, very excited, because coming as someone that has a whole bunch of medical school debt and it will be looking to pay it off, and currently on a salary that is much, much less than some of these numbers here, it makes me really excited to hit the ground running as soon as residency is over and to take on as much work as is possible. And that's one more thing that I really want to say. All of this should be phrased around me as a resident. And in speaking with many of my other friends here in residency, we see something like this and we think, wow, there is a healthcare system that is rewarding their staff, their practitioners, with monetary incentives to stay in the area, to take on as many patients as possible, and to continue to work. So now that we see that, and there is the option and the need and all of these job listings for places in BC looking for doctors there, you have to stop and ask yourself what the other provinces will now need to do to stop us from just going over there and starting to work there. I think that hopefully this will have a trickle-down effect, hopefully all the way to Atlantic Canada, because I know that a lot of those provinces really need incentives for family medicine doctors down there as well. But it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully will allow people interested in family medicine to continue advocating for better payment models. And hopefully this will help us to move a little bit in the direction of getting medical students more interested in getting back into family medicine, which is so important in terms of primary care and helping to make sure that people have adequate access to healthcare in the country. But all right, everyone, that's going to be the entire video for today. That's my breakdown of the new healthcare model and the payment model in BC, and my little bit of speculation as to what might happen next. But please, let's keep the conversation going. If you have any questions about anything we talked about, if you have any insight that you want to provide, maybe you're someone working in BC right now and you want to share a little bit about boots on the ground and what people are actually feeling about this payment plan there, I'd love to hear from you as well. So until then, we'll see you all in the next one, and everyone take care.